Everyone, my name is Jalen Barron. I am Miss Pennsylvania's Outstanding Teen 2021, and I'm here with a very special guest today, and I'll let her formally introduce herself.
My name is Janet Liss. I am a survivor of pancreatic neuroendocrine tumor, or PNET, which is a lot easier to say.
For our viewers, can you further describe what type of pancreatic cancer you had so our viewers can get an understanding?
From what I understand, pancreatic neuroendocrine cancer is something that has been considered very rare. It's about 5% of people who have any sort of pancreatic cancer. And some people even make the distinction of, if you talk about pancreatic cancer, that's adenocarcinoma, and that this is specifically PNET. Pancreatic neuroendocrine tumors. They're slow growing, and I think several years ago, they were described as, well, we can cure them, which I'm not sure is accurate or believed anymore. I was diagnosed in 2012 with, I had very severe pain, and everybody thought it was appendicitis. Okay. And we were at Albright College. We were driving back, and at a certain point, it was late at night at that point, and at a certain point, I just told my husband, go through the red lights. I don't care.
Yeah.
And it was extremely severe. They did a CT scan and said, oops, there is something on this. And that's a terrifying feeling. For sure. And I was admitted to the hospital, and they were then discussing the different kinds of pancreatic cancer. And, most of the time it is adenocarcinoma, not all of the time. Mm-hmm. So then I had an upper endoscopy, and had the diagnosis of neuroendocrine.
Wow.
Pancreatic neuroendocrine cancer. I asked several people, anybody I could find who knew anything about it, who is best in this area, or should I go to Hopkins? And they said, why go to Hopkins? Because Dr. Yo's here.
Yes.
And, so I had a surgery. It went well. It was like a 5-hour surgery.
Okay. It's so interesting to hear your story, because for background, I lost my mom, and a similar situation. She was kind of nauseous and had back pain, but she went to the hospital, and not thinking it was pancreatic cancer whatsoever, because she wasn't really educated or hadn't known a lot about it. When the doctors came in and said that, it was such a shocking moment, because again, for this month to bring awareness, some people know of some of those bigger cancers, and then pancreatic cancer didn't even cross her mind. So I really applaud you for sharing your story with us today. But I just wanted to know a little bit more about your treatment process. I kind of understood throughout the story what you went through, but can you kind of lay it out for our viewers?
Right after that, I was told basically that I really didn't need follow-up, which, given that I had lost most of my pancreas, I thought I would try to follow up with an endocrinologist, and then was transferred to a medical oncologist who I've been seeing since 2012 with 6 months to a year CT scans, and nothing has shown up. And it's the only real issue I've had is I've continued with Creon. I'll take my Creon. And I've had pains that would appear periodically out of the blue. All of a sudden, I'd have this severe pain. Several times I ended up in the emergency room, where, some of the time it's taken seriously, and sometimes they just say, oh, just you have stomach pain, go home. Yeah. And, nobody really seems to understand that it's severe pain. For sure. The last time I had probably the most severe pain, which I wasn't really registering on at all, was in August, actually for my birthday in 2020. I was at Costco. I hadn't eaten, which I thought later, well, this is why it was so bad. I passed out.
Oh no.
then was taken to the ER
Hmm.
and that was in the middle of COVID. It was a very bad experience.
Hmm.
I was really,
Imagine.
you can't be having that much pain. It was really bad.
Hmm.
And I ended up having a CT scan. They saw something which they thought might be a gastric hemorrhage, bleeding ulcer. And that was not it. And I went and had an upper endoscopy, and they saw nothing there. And I always think back, is that something that should have shown up there? There
Yeah.
was something, but they didn't ever determine what it was. At any rate, in January, I had the next medical oncology appointment and had a CT scan. In the meantime, I'd been taking Zantac
Okay.
to try to control the gastritis or whatever was
Hmm.
causing us. And then, of course, Zantac turned out to have impurities. So I started taking omeprazole, and my chromogranin A, which was followed, if that's what you follow for neuroendocrine tumors, and it was sky high. It's supposed to be like, I think the range changed. So it was like low numbers, 100, less than 100, and it was in the thousands.
Oh wow.
And so I thought, well, it's the omeprazole. Well, and I stopped taking the omeprazole, and it did come down. And I thought, oh, I don't need the CT scan. I'm fine. Because, 5 years, oh, gee, you're cured. It hasn't come back in 5 years. But this was 8.5 years.
Hmm.
And CT scan. And that was my next episode of passing out. As soon as I sat down in the doctor's office, and she said, stuff showed up on your CT scan, and I promptly passed out. When it came back, it was still well differentiated, but it had metastasized to my liver. And so I had the upper endoscopy with biopsies, and then had a PET spot. And I think there's other names for that, but it shows up somatostatin sensitive receptors. The places that light up on that mean that you can use lanreotide or lanreotide, however you want to pronounce it, depot injections. And those don't cure anything, but they help control it, and they hopefully will shrink tumors. That is
Wow.
something that wasn't approved by the FDA for this use until 2014.
Oh wow.
So that's what I'm doing. Every 28 days, I go into Jefferson and have my injection.
Wow. So as we close out, thank you for sharing all of that with us. In this time, this month of Thanksgiving and giving and being grateful, I would love to know what you're grateful for and how you're paying it forward, especially in this month.
Well, I'm grateful because I don't feel bad at all. I really don't have a whole lot of symptoms,
It's awesome.
other than the fact that the medication increases my blood sugar. So now I take metformin now.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And, but I feel fine.
Mhm.
And, I am grateful that I do feel fine. I can do everything. It's just this lingering feeling that there is this stuff in my pancreas.
Yeah, for sure.
And what I've also investigated recently is more support groups, and actually found one that was very specific to pancreatic neuroendocrine tumors,
Oh,
which
good for
is
you.
nice. That's on inspire.com. Some of
Okay.
the other ones are more general,
Hmm.
but and that particular group has 7,500 people in it.
Wow.
So, I don't know whether it's become more common or the
Mhm.
diagnosis has become more common because they can find it now.
Wow.
Because people talk about this, and that it's something that you die with, not from,
Hmm.
because it's very slow growing. And that's what I'm grateful for.
Hmm. Wow, thank you for sharing that, especially about the support groups. It's really good to hear you explain that to everyone and say that's out there and you can be a part of something like that. But Janet, thank you so much for sharing all of that information. I know I learned so much today, and I know our viewers will learn so much. So I appreciate your time and thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your interest.
Yes.